Second half of the arena is now open for business. Everybody get back to your seats now. First up, Philadelphia-based attorney for the law firm Joseph M. Rollo & Associates. She specializes in immigration and asylum. Let's welcome Christine Flowers and the chairman and CEO of Patriarch Equity and DigitalMarketing.com, Eric Schiffer. I thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks
Good to see you, my friend.
All right, let's get to it. Christine, ladies first, of course, and your first time here. I'm going to give you the first shot at this. Trey Gowdy talks about the fact that Hillary Clinton's email server has been wiped clean. Nothing else going to be turned over to Benghazi. Absolutely nothing else. The American public, I think, is starting to get a little tired of this. They want to know some answers here. They want to know why this should affect Hillary Clinton's run at the White House. And there's a lot of people on the right who would say, wait a minute, you're hiding stuff from us. That should seem to be all the explanation you need.
Absolutely. I think, well, first of all, as a woman, I don't necessarily feel that Hillary Clinton is having a negative impact on women and female candidates in general. But I do think that as a Clinton, she's sort of following the script of unethical behavior. Now, we're not saying that Hillary Clinton necessarily did anything that was unethical, illegal. However, the appearances are so important here, especially given the history of her family. And I think that when you are the Secretary of State, and I deal with the Department of State all the time as an immigration attorney, transparency is extremely important. And for her to be able to now come up and say, well, you know, you're not getting anything else, and I did this because for convenience sake, and 2 devices, and what have you, and all that jibber jabber, truly, it's something that is of great concern to me and to most of the people that I've been speaking with. And we're it's across partisan lines. This is not Democrats versus Republicans, GOP versus the Democratic Party. These are concerned voters who are worried that the likely candidate for the Democratic nomination is not going to be forthcoming.
Eric, there's something else about the likely candidate for the Democrats, because if you look at all the polls right now, she really hasn't lost much when it comes down to support. This whole thing looks like it is just going to simply blow over, and those who have always supported Mrs. Clinton will still support her. So there's where people are going to say, what difference does this make?
It looks like it, but what it does is it reinforces the whole concept of fatigue and Clinton fatigue. And right now, unfortunately for Hillary Clinton, that's a problem, and so she's trying to position herself in a new way for the future, and these things continue to come back from her past. This is an example of it. Unfortunately, there was no logical reason why you'd want to wipe that clean, and so it creates problems, as we said. I think that the base is hopeful that there's another potential candidate. It may be O'Malley. O'Malley certainly is articulate. He's charismatic, and he knows the issues, and he's data driven for a populace that thinks that way today. So I think the base is not necessarily happy about this, the people that I've certainly talked to, and I would imagine that if they had a credible alternative, they might go that direction.
Okay,
and we'll see.
well,
it's very early.
Let me get to you on that. About 90 seconds left before we take our first break. When it comes down to the alternative, Governor Martin O'Malley of Maryland, the former governor, quote, "The president of the United States is not some crown to be passed between 2 families. He's the one hitting away at these dynasties here." Eric, does he have a point?
He's got a good point. And we need leadership that comes from every part of this country, not ones that only come because of their last name. And certainly why everyone certainly knows the Clintons, they know the Bush family. There needs to be an opportunity for some of these new faces, people that are competent, that have a good track record like O'Malley and others, and certainly those on the Republican side too, that can break through. And unfortunately, because of money and because of the branding effect, it's so hard for candidates. So he's saying what people want, but aren't able to get. They aren't able to get access to these candidates to really have the platform because of the money, because of the barriers of branding. And that's why the Clintons and Bushes have been able to maintain this dynasty.
All right, Christine, I throw it to you then. 30 seconds left here. What are the choices then? Because Americans seem stuck in the dynastic area, if you will, into that thought process.
I think the GOP much less than the Democratic Party, because the GOP has proffered other alternatives to Jeb Bush. With respect to the Democrats, Eric referenced O'Malley, and he does seem to be a legitimate alternative, although he is extremely progressive. And I don't know if the Democratic Party is willing to latch on to someone who is so progressive that may alienate their base. Hillary Clinton is a little bit more of a moderate with respect to the Democrats. So I'm not sure what other alternatives they have. Definitely not Elizabeth Warren, because she's even more progressive.
Okay, stand by if you will. We got to take a break. And when we do, we're going to go right up your alley, Christina, when it comes down to the immigration toolkit, if you will. And I meant Christine, of course. Next. Welcome back to the arena. Philadelphia-based attorney for the law firm Joseph M. Rollo & Associates, Christine Flowers. Chairman and CEO of Patriarch Equity and Digital Marketing.com, Eric Schiffer. Okay, we're going to go to immigration now, so I'm going to have to go back to the lady. Once again, first time up. Eric, hang tight, because that's her business right now, and this caught us. Luis Gutierrez, the representative in Illinois, the Democrat, has the release of an immigration toolkit that is downloadable on his website. I'm reading it right here from the release. It will help illegal immigrants gather the documentation they will need to prove their eligibility for amnesty. Christine, what do you think about having a toolkit for this?
Ed, I went to the website and I downloaded the toolkit. And essentially what the toolkit is a reiteration of what President Obama announced back in November with respect to the executive orders with the so-called Dreamer formulation, and also the executive order which would have allowed parents of U.S. citizens who had been here for a certain amount of time to be able to get work authorization and protection from deportation. And a third element of that announcement in November, which is overlooked by a lot of people in the general public, was a reordering of deportation priorities. And what that did was that gave the Immigration Service the opportunity to weigh different equities. So if you have, for example, someone who has committed a crime or is a national security threat, they're high up on that pyramid, on that pinnacle of likely deportation. Whereas if you have someone who is illegally present in the United States, has children, hasn't committed a crime, is working, they're a lower priority.
Well, but wait a minute, and I get all that, but if you don't mind my interrupting here, because there are some people who will come out and say that, wait a minute, this basically is an elected official basically helping people break the law.
No, he's not. He's not helping people break the law. What he's doing is he's giving people guidelines which would parallel what President Obama announced. Now, keep in mind that part of those executive orders are in suspension because of the litigation down in federal court in Texas. However, that third part that I'm talking about, the prioritizing of deportation, is in effect and is being used by the Immigration Service right now. So essentially, whether or not you agree with what President Obama has done, what Gutierrez is doing is simply writing down and giving in Spanish and English a sort of like a bird's eye view of what is if you are not a criminal alien, how can you address, if you're arrested, let's say, by the police and they're going to notify immigration, or you're in danger of being deported, what kind of arguments can you give to them to tell them, wait a minute, don't deport me now, maybe deport me next year, but deport that other guy first?
Let me stop you there. 90 seconds to go. Eric, your turn.
Well, look, I think, and I agree with what Christine has said, I think politically it sends a message that I find very distasteful. Whether you agree with President Clinton or President Obama or not, it's distasteful in that it seems like he's waving how to beat the system card, and essentially allowing others that may not have even crossed the border to consider that this is a way to get out, whether it's true or not. And so to me, it's just very distasteful for an elected member of Congress to be highlighting these things in such a gross fashion. It rubs me the wrong way. I'm sure it rubs many people the wrong way and it sends the wrong message to immigrants who are trying to do it the right way.
Nothing more than a political ploy, though?
Could I say, Ed, I agree with what Eric said. It is political. It's extremely political. And I have a problem with the Democrats trying to sort of brand themselves as the pro-immigrant constituency.
Yeah, wouldn't you say that that's it more than anything else? Eric, I think that's probably the point that people are getting to.
No question. There's no question. They're trying to, in many ways, brand themselves and capture more votes and capture that constituency that, look, it's not a small constituency. It's growing, and it will continue to. And so there's that aspect to it. There is a war from a voter perspective that's going on. And again, the message that it sends to people that are trying to get in this country legitimately, that are smart, that are hardworking, that want to play by the rules, that want to do it the right way, wrong message.
All right, there you go. Stand by, everybody. We have one more segment in the arena to come because we're going to talk spring break and the New York Post front page. That and more when we continue. Let's get back to it. Philadelphia-based attorney for Joseph M. Rollo & Associates, Christine Flowers, and the chairman and CEO of Patriarch Equity Digitalmarketing.com, Eric Schiffer. To you first, Eric. We got about 4 minutes to go. We got a lot to handle here. In Panama City Beach, Florida, spring breakers paradise. Some guy shoots off a gun, attempted murder for 7 people. They've been telling them that this would happen for years because basically the people up there are more interested in making money than they are in keeping the spring breakers under control.
Look, this is a story that's never going to go away. The young people, there's always going to be beer, likely, on these kind of events. I remember back in the days of Palm Springs when I used to go when I was much younger. And ultimately, the city clamped down. There were policies. And there's always going to be a battle between the local merchants and public policy and how the city wants to run themselves and these kinds of events. That will likely continue for a while. I know that it probably won't slow down now. You'll probably see more, what I would call extracurricular activities. But ultimately, these things have a way of working themselves out between a battle, like I said, with these two forces.
Christine, legally, the city's got to be looking at this because the cops up there have been saying for a long time, you don't give us the power to clamp down on these people when they're drunk and stupid.
Absolutely, Ed. And first, I'll say, as the graduate of an all-girls Catholic high school and a 4-year women's college, I don't have any personal experience with this type of spring break activity. But the town in Florida did have notice to the extent that there were votes last year. Council members presented proposals to ban alcohol on the beach and to push back last call hour, and they were defeated. And so not only do they have notice of this kind of activity, they have liability in the sense that they didn't take actions which they could have taken, very simple, very effective actions to try and forestall some of this activity.
Well, they even admit that they made a mistake in here because the councilman, Keith Curry, says we made a mistake. We didn't take care of more arrests. We didn't take care of Molly on the streets. We had more drug arrests for heroin. We just didn't do enough. They're opening themselves wide up here for problems.
Absolutely. And I mean, they're admitting culpability. Now, obviously, I don't know if that's going to stand up in a court of law, but there clearly is some level of culpability and responsibility here for those young people who are now in critical condition in the hospital.
All right, speaking of culpability and responsibility, 2 minutes left. The New York Post, the front page recently, Village Idiots. 7 people standing there with a selfie stick taking pictures of themselves smiling in front of the burning buildings in the East Village. Christine, I'm sorry, I call this the generation of stupid.
It's the generation of stupid. It's the generation of callous. It's the generation of so much of this, of the social media. And we're appearing now, via Skype, which is wonderful. There are many good aspects about social media and technology, but so much of it has debased society and debased our sense of what's ethical and what's compassionate. And I have no answer for what the New York Post has exposed.
The one girl giving the peace sign there, she later did apologize. But I'll tell you what, Eric, this still goes to show a lot of basic upbringing. This goes to show the fact that you're dealing in front of a fire and you're smiling. Who are these people? And not only that, who are the people who raised them?
Yeah, it's a culture, unfortunately, where we're raising people that are becoming very narcissistic, and the technology reinforces this, and the reinforcement with your peers in society. And so everyone's trying to bring the next, newest, coolest thing. And what's more outrageous than these kinds of shots? It's pathetic. It's sad. It needs a big look at from much of our wiser members of this society to be able to try to reshape some of these belief systems about what's important and what kind of behaviors are good and what's out of bounds. That was really pathetic.
I don't even know at this point if smart people teaching these people would do anything whatsoever, because the generation of stupid seems to have pretty much taken over certain facets of society. That's scary indeed. Scary that we're out of time. Eric Schiffer, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Christine Flowers, thanks so much for joining the arena. You will be back. We'll lean on that legalese at other times.
Thank you.
All right,
Great
take
question.
care. Third and final Monday hour on MidPoint, a president in desperate need of cutting a deal with a leading exporter of terror, the reality of pilot training and psychological revelations, and what happened on this day in 1939 that changed the way we think about people, specifically a guy named Bruce Wayne. And so much more when we continue right here on MidPoint.